The Abyssinian Baptist Church was established in 1808. It was founded as a result of racial segregation in the First Baptist Church located on Gold Street in Lower Manhattan. Several Ethiopian merchants visited the church to worship, and they were told that they had to sit in a segregated section of the church. Well, they refused because they did not understand segregation in the house of God and walked out. Several African Americans who were worshiping there, free African Americans in New York, saw that and walked out with them. And they got together and decided to establish a church where all people can worship. And they named it for the Ethiopians, the Abyssinians. They named it the Abyssinian Baptist Church, Abyssinian being an ancient name for Ethiopia. And since then, the church has been located in New York. And this year, 2008, we celebrate our bicentennial. And we've celebrated with a number of great activities. Last September, 2007, we took 165 pilgrims to Ethiopia. And we visited. We're the largest group ever to visit Ethiopia. And it was a marvelous visit. We visited all the ancient cities. We saw the religious artifacts. Wynton Marsalis, the musical director of Jazz at Lincoln Center and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, Wynton wrote a piece for our celebration. It was performed at Jazz at Lincoln Center and 2 performances at the church. We had a large health walk where we visited the various sites where Abyssinian was located. Because we walked out of Gold Street, we were located on Anthony Street, which is now Worth Street. We were located on Waverly Place, and then finally 40th Street, and then finally the congregation moved north to Harlem, located on West 138th Street. We've had many distinguished pastors. The best known would be Adam Clayton Powell Sr., who built the church at 138th Street, gospel giant, and grew it to the largest Protestant congregation in America. Actually, Abyssinian was the first megachurch. Then he was followed by his son, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., not only a dynamic pastor, but of course a distinguished gentleman, server in the United States Congress for nearly 30 years. And finally, well, not finally, Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor, an esteemed educator, followed him. And I followed Dr. Proctor. The church, Abyssinian especially, in the tradition of the black church particularly, should be a gadfly, should be the conscience of a community or a state or a nation. And Abyssinian has been that. Adam Clayton Powell Sr. was one of the founders of the NAACP. Adam Clayton Powell Jr. produced more pieces of domestic legislation for the benefit of all Americans than any other person that I know of who served in the Congress. Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor was an ardent arguer for racial justice, equality, and especially education, particularly for those who were not as well endowed in terms of material things as others. And I want Abyssinian to continue in that tradition. We've done so in our own form of protest, if you will, by the rebuilding of the Harlem community. We founded the Abyssinian Development Corporation. We watched as housing was deteriorating, schools were falling apart, the educational quality was at an all-time low, commercial businesses were fleeing. And so our development corporation began by reestablishing a housing stock, affordable housing for working families. We have built 3 schools, a lower school, a middle school, and a high school. 2 of those schools in a brand new building, the first brand new high school built in Harlem in 50 years or more. We have established commercial businesses. We built a shop, a vertical office building and mall at 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. We built the first Pathmark supermarket in Harlem, the first supermarket in Harlem. We have the largest supermarket on Manhattan Island. We have, oh my goodness. Well, you get the idea. I mean, I can't think of all things. There's several other things. But that in a real sense for me, is our protest against the kind of forces that would have allowed for deterioration, and then moved in and reestablished a bankhead for market rate housing and gentrification. Now, when I talk about gentrification, I'm not talking about whites displacing blacks. What I'm talking about more so is the wealthy. It's a class struggle where the wealthy misplace the poor. Harlem happens to be predominantly a black community, and the people who live there are poor. And it just so happens that many times in the gentrification process, the poor blacks are pushed out by more well-endowed whites. But the real issue is to make sure that poor people, whatever race they are, have an opportunity to live and prosper in this city. And our form of protest is to build the kind of housing and community resources, or create the community resources that will allow poor people to exist with dignity in a city like New York, as well as argue that model for the nation. The Abyssinian Baptist Church was established in 1808. It was founded as a result of racial segregation in the First Baptist Church located on Gold Street in Lower Manhattan. Several Ethiopian merchants visited the church to worship, and they were told that they had to sit in a segregated section of the church. Well, they refused because they did not understand segregation in the house of God, and walked out. Several African Americans who were worshiping there, free African Americans in New York, saw that and walked out with them. And they got together and decided to establish a church where all people can worship. And they named it for the Ethiopians, the Abyssinians. They named it the Abyssinian Baptist Church. And since then, the church has been located in New York.
Please join me in welcoming from the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, the Reverend Calvin Butts III.
I'm delighted to have been given this opportunity to say a word of inspiration concerning the National Museum of African American History and Culture. African American. What is Africa to me? Copper sun or scarlet sea, jungle star, jungle track, strong bronzed men, or regal black. Women from whose loins I sprang when the birds of Eden sang. 3 centuries removed from the land his father loved. Spicy grove and cinnamon tree. What is Africa to me? This may be the land of the pilgrim's pride, but it's also the land where my mothers and fathers died. So let freedom ring. Ring. Yes, let freedom ring. And America is becoming, because so many brave women and men have fought to preserve the integrity of the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, Crispus Attucks. 200,000 sons of Ethiopia who gave their lives in order to hold the Union together. Heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. Dory Miller, the 369th Harlem Hellfighters, and of course the Tuskegee Airmen, who more than selves their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine. Shalom, salam alaikum, peace be unto you. God bless.